Hello again YouTube, and welcome back to Just Get a Tesla. Today I'm in Cullen in Moray, and for the drive home I thought it'd be interesting to once again test autopilot on a single carriageway road. I did an earlier test driving to Peterhead, which wasn't entirely successful, so if you haven't seen that video, go and watch it first. There's a link in the description. So we're going to take the learnings from that trip and apply them to the way that I am applying autopilot and setting things like maximum speed, and we'll see if this is a bit smoother. Coming out of Cullen, and we're ready to go, so I'm going to stick it on straight away because as you can see the road is now free of cars and houses and other things that I need to slalom around. So I had quite a few comments the first time around about the expectations that I had. So first of all, this is Europe, hi America, and we have got a completely different regulatory setup than you have. So we cannot have the versions of full self-driving that you've got. However, this is still the standard autopilot auto steer that you get free with the car. I haven't paid for enhanced autopilot, and I certainly haven't paid for the crippled alleged full self-driving that you can get in Europe. So I know that this is not going to be the easiest of environments for the car with the software that I've got. I'm aware of that, but it's not that you can't use it on this, it just says that it will be restricted. So that itself is a challenge. How restricted? We have to go and find these things out. That's why I'm making these videos. I'm doing it so that you don't have to. But wafting along here at 55 on a reasonably fast road, the car's absolutely fine. I'm going to increase it to 60 actually, because it's pretty straight now. So let's go to 60. There is a bend up ahead, but again, these are nice fast sweepers. I can't see there really being anything particularly to cause a problem as we go into these. Famous last words, Ian. Nah, fine. And it is staying nicely centered in the lane as well. It's not doing anything particularly stupid. It knows where the lines are. So obviously we've got nice center line on the right. We haven't got any line at all on the left, and the car isn't bothered. It can see where it is. It's reading the edge of the grass on the verge as being the edge of the road, and it's keeping us nicely planted. We'll dial it back to 55 in advance of these bends. It's doing fine round it. It's doing absolutely fine. You know, it is reading the bend and it's steering an appropriate amount. This is a bit of a zoom bend, but again, 55 is okay. It didn't quite steer quickly enough, early enough, and I think it would have corrected mid-corner, and that's why I just took over, but it's staying at 55 on cruise, and that's absolutely fine. So I think that's a good demonstration of where the European regulations on how much steering input the car can actually put in creates a bit of an issue. Not because it needed to steer lots, just because it wasn't really steering quickly enough. Now, if I've got that wrong, and that is something where either enhanced autopilot or the European version of full self-driving would get it so that the car would steer faster into that kind of bend, please let me know in the comments. I am genuinely interested. So this is a drive of 30 miles, and it'll be interesting to see how our efficiency is. It's warmed up fairly heavily versus the snowy joy that we've had for most of the last week, so it's actually showing 8 degrees, which is balmy, frankly, for the weather we've been having. Okay, this is quite tight, so we're going to slow it to 50, and we're going to see what it does. Then 45, so brake in advance and then back to 50. So I just gave it a flick down and a flick up, And that way it is, frankly, it's powering through the corner, and that was perfect. You know, that was really good in terms of steering inputs. 45, so again, just slow it down a touch before we get to the corner. And then, again, I will probably put just a little bit more pressure on the steering wheel than it was happy with. And that is why it's disengaged. Okay, the guy ahead of me is turning right, and we will see how we slow down. So I'm not slowing the car down, the car is slowing itself down because it's following the traffic as it drops down into the 30 limit with the person turning off. And it has now changed my speed to 30, so my max speed is now 30, which is good because it saves me having to do it. And it is resuming driving by itself. I am, again, not touching the throttle, I am covering the brake, and it is speeding itself back up. I'm expecting to turn this off very, very, very shortly, by the way, but we'll see how we get on. We've got a load of parked cars on the left-hand side, but actually they're all on the pavement, so it shouldn't have any issues with those. Although the lane is quite wide, and it is going straight down the middle. Yeah, I don't think it entirely knew what to do with the guy on the little steps, but we were still miles away from it. So, like there, the car that had its bum sticking out just slightly into traffic, it didn't react quickly enough, so I took it off, but I'm putting it back on. As we go down the hill, again, it just did a bit of a left shimmy. It's just wide, and it's just correcting itself, so we'll go straight down the middle. I would probably hug the line a little more with the parked vehicles, but there we are. And then we're coming down to the end, and I'm going to apply the brakes to turn it off because we're turning right. And I most definitely don't have the software for the car to be able to come to a halt and make itself turn right. Anyway, down the main street in Banff, I'm not even going to think about it, and yeah, the steering wheel's just disappeared. There is quite literally nothing for it to reference onto. There's just a big expanse of, frankly, rather worn and polished tarmac. There's no centre line, there's no real line in the middle either. There is now, but it just disappears in and out, and the symbol disappears with it. So, yeah. Again, question, anyone who's got full self-driving, whether the European version or the American version, hi all, how will that cope in an environment like that where there aren't really any markings on the road at all? Again, let me know in the comments, please. I am interested. Huge ship moored out in the bay. You do get quite a lot of them here, and Macduff, that we are now coming into, is a big ship repair place and harbour. So again, I've just dabbed the brake just to let regen slow the car down by itself so that we are within the speed limit when we get there. Let's give it another try. Again, on the steering wheel, covering the brake. You can go around here at 30, and it's doing so beautifully. The issue that I've got, of course, is traffic going over the line coming the other way, or maybe a bus at the bus stop, but there isn't anything, is there? Let's see how long we get away with it. It's doing fine. It's doing absolutely fine down here. But unlike going down the main street in Banff, we actually do have markings of some description. But I am going to intervene here because it started to slow down where it was going to sit behind the parked vehicle, which would have been quite funny. So the symbol's gone as well. There's just not enough markings down here for it to be able to cope, and there's a parked car which we need to go around. But I suspect that once we've got around all of those, then yeah, it's just come back on. It's offering me autopilot again, which I'm going to take. Nope. Phantom braking of some description. I don't know what it did then, but it just decided to brake randomly for no particular reason. So there are parked cars, they're on the other side, and what I'm looking for here is for traffic coming down the hill who has to wait for me. But at the moment, yeah, that's flowing quite nicely, so I am okay. I'm actually going to slow to 25 for this corner because it is tight and it's on a bend, and I'm going to override it as well, and then on the brake completely as we go around here because I've got to slow down. Again, no lines of any description really here, and parked vehicles and cars coming down the middle of the road. How is full self-driving going to cope in this kind of environment? We are going to get into the start of the 60 limit, and we're going to absolutely floor it to get to 60. And that never gets old. Never gets old. 30 to 60 in as long as you can say, "Mummy, mummy, mummy, it's too fast." Okay. Let's put it back on and we'll restrict it to 55 because I know that there are a couple of bends around here. I mean, they're relatively gentle. But again, we'll keep manual control of the speed and we'll see if it does any better. You can do 55 around here without any problem at all. Let's see. Yep, that's fine. Car nice and comfortable in the centre of the lane, not really worried or anything like that. It's doing absolutely fine. Good, this is good. Okay, bend coming up, so we're going to drop the speed to 55. And it's absolutely fine. Again, if I'd slow down for these ones and just let the car slow itself down. Tell it, I want you to go no faster than this speed, and it's much, much calmer. You know, this is a much easier drive than the other autopilot testing video was. Again, this is 55 without any problems at all, surely. It's steering quite late, so it is taking me over to the towards the line, but it is going around it, and again, it is doing it by itself. And then we'll go back to 60 because it's into a nice straight section. So I know it can go around that at 55 without even worrying about it at all, and maybe slightly slow to steer in, but again, it went round it and there was no drama, and it's much better. So the reason why I'm doing this test is quite literally just to try and understand and to probe the limits of what it means in the descriptions when it says that auto steer might be restricted on this kind of road. Well, restricted doesn't say no, and it doesn't say you can't use it. It just means it's going to be restricted. So we have to test that, don't we? Because, well, that's what this channel's all about, really. And I think it's also good because I have got the telematics switched on where it is sending my data to our Lord Elon so that he and his team can process it. So this is testing hopefully for everybody. At least that's what I'm telling myself. So I'm just going to slow this down to 55, mid-corner, although it's a very long sweeping corner, let's be brutally honest about it. And it's got a car in the lay-by, and it wasn't entirely sure what to do with it initially, but it's fine. And again, it's eased itself off the power a little bit and slowed just a touch below 55, and it kept us well away from them. And it did, again, you know, I've seen it panic in that kind of situation before, and it didn't. Around there at 60 without any problems at all. I'm going to slow this to 55 just because it does sweep in a little bit. It's gone a bit further over to the line than I'd like, and I have had to intervene to bring it back into the centre. Again, the next one, 55, shouldn't be a problem. Let's try it. So auto steer back on. It's a sweeper, and it's turned in nice and early that time. So it's probably following the line in the centre. Perhaps a right-hander is easier for it to do than a left-hander. That's an interesting idea. Is a right-hand bend easier for the car than a left? So again, this is 55 all day long, and it's closer to the line than it really should be. So I have just eased it back across a little bit, and then we're going to slow it down to 50 now anyway, because we're coming into the village. So a right-hander might be easier than a left-hander. We definitely need to test this, and there's a few places coming up where we can do so. It's just gone past the sign telling me that it's a 20 miles an hour speed limit during school hours when the lights flash, and the lights aren't flashing, and it still sets the speed at 20 because it doesn't understand a switchable speed limit. So when you get a road like this where it is single carriageway and there are bends, but they tend to be gentle and sweeping, it really doesn't cause auto steer any problem at all. It's fine doing these, especially if you look at the ones and think, I wouldn't drive around there at 60 and just pull the speed back. So in this case, I probably would drive around this one at 60, and we'll see how the car does. But it's a right-hand turn, and in theory, the right-handers are easier for the car than the left-hander. That's the hypothesis that I've got, and it's gone absolutely flying around there without any problems at all. Very comfortably in the centre of the lane, turning in at the appropriate times by the appropriate amount. Now here is the counter bend where, again, you could do 60 round here off to the left, and it is okay. It's because we've slowed down for the guy in front, it is keeping me relatively central in the lane, although up here it's gone a little bit further to the right than I would have liked. Put it back on. Yeah, it's easier on a right hand turn than a left hand turn. We've got another right coming up. Let's try it. So yeah, nice and central in the lane, and then the corresponding left. Yeah, we went a lot closer to the centre, a lot closer to the centre on the left-hand turn than we did on the right. Here comes another right. Nicely in the middle, and the corresponding left. And we're drifting into the centre. I mean, not dangerously drifting to the centre, but it's not as centralised in the lane as going round a right-hander. So I think this is really interesting. Well, I'm interested anyway. Again, the screen's flashing blue at me as if I haven't got my hand on the wheel, which I have. So no problem at all around there. Okay, these are tight, so we're going to pull them back to 50 and then 45. So left-hander, and I'm close to the line. And I'm following traffic, so it's doing the speed that the other guy's doing. And it actually slowed down a bit for the guys coming the other way. And then here's a right-hander. And he says auto steer limited, but again, it's got me right in the middle of the lane. And then here's a left-hander. Mind you, I'm going so slowly now that it canted itself in the middle. So, yeah, that's really interesting. We're going to have to go and test this one again, aren't we? Because I'm nearly home. Well, that was interesting because I think I found what Doug DeMuro would describe as a quirk and feature of my Tesla Model Y's autopilot. So again, just as a reminder, I live in Europe. I've got standard autopilot. I haven't got enhanced autopilot or full self-driving European rubbish version. What I've got is what comes free with a car. And what I think I've just found there is that the car is better reactive to right-hand bends than it is to left-hand bends. It appears to be seeing the lines in the middle going off and is able to react better to the change in the radius and the amount of turn-in that's needed and when it needs to turn in to be able to stay centrally in the lane. It's better doing it on a right-hand bend than it is going the other way where it's a left-hand bend, and the the grass verge, the curb, whatever, starts going away from it, but it isn't seeing that and reacting enough. It's not reacting really until the centre line starts coming across in front of it, by which time it's probably a bit too late. We're going to have to do some more testing on that. So if you want to watch that video, don't forget to like and subscribe, hit the bell icon so you know when my next videos come out, and I'll see you very soon right here on Just Get a Tesla.